well, no, actually Everson, but I know Sarah May is online with her, yeah.
It's not the Washington Flying.
No,
Is Marcia back?
yeah, she is. You know, when that song we got out here, Jesse Davis Park is another one. You know, the voters voted on that, it passed by, they did.
It's gonna cost more to run than
It's gonna be nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's here for people.
And I know when people are, and they don't wanna hear excuses, we just gotta present the facts. So, I've been there,
Yeah.
on the other side, and I get it.
$14 a month for us. We gotta make sure, and I did, I don't know if you saw the paper where it said, look, gotta make sure you're not confusing the city's portion of your taxes. with the county's. So we're the smallest piece.
And I looked again at my projected tax bill, and they did not surprise me. It's the first time I looked again, and they didn't raise my value of my own from last year to this year. I'm just wondering why.
Well, it seems like it's an every 3-year cycle, what I'm noticing, because the last 2 years, it was 15%, 10 to 15% increase in residential. This year, it was just 3 to 5. So we'll see again. But yeah, it was a small increase in assessments for residential this year. How about you two? Councilman, did your home value?
Yeah, crunched on that.
Okay.
It took a big jump.
Mine took a jump last year, but this year it was the same as last year, which surprised me.
Yeah, ours has been falling behind, like ours has fallen behind a little bit, and this year caught up. Well, it's just cost of housing. National average is over 400,000.
Yeah.
Average.
Yeah. I see.
It's 'cause these companies are buying up houses like crazy.
And I don't know what can be done about that.
I mean, everybody's hands tied, just like ours. You can't tell people you can't rent your house.
Right.
If you own it, you have the right to do it, unless there's already a provision in it.
You know, it's one thing if a homeowner lives in my subdivision and they move out, they get transferred, they have to hold on to the house and they want money. I get that, but these big corporations. And I'm not getting some corporations, what I'm getting is absentee landlords that don't want to. And that's what I'm these days. If you look, Chicago,
Oh, yeah.
you know, I mean, they were experiencing.
Yeah.
I know it's here in case somebody has a comment. In case somebody has a comment or question. Kingsley.
Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Thursday, August 15th, 10 o'clock, City of Douglasville public hearing for the establishment of the fiscal year 2025 millage rate. My name is Terry Miller. I'm the Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Douglasville. And as far as agenda goes, we have one agenda item, and that is simply the review of our establishment of this year's millage rate. And so I will turn the floor over to our Finance Committee Chair, Councilman Chris Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem, we have one item today, hold a public hearing to consider the proposed 2024 ad valorem tax millage rate for maintenance and operations, and Ms. Karen Callan will handle this today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Karen Callan. I am the Chief Financial Officer and Assistant City Manager here at the City of Douglasville. This is the first of 3 required public hearings when we do not roll our millage rate back. I have a brief presentation, and then we will allow for public comment. The millage rate is proposed at 8.749. That's a little over 1 mil from our prior year millage rate, but it is 1.25 mils over the rollback rate. And that is how we are required by state statute to calculate the increase. For an example, a property value of $350,000, your monthly cost was $87.48. The proposed millage rate will be $102.07 per month, an increase of $14.59 on a $350,000 house. That rate will change depending on the value of your house. If your house is $200, $250, it will be a little bit lower. If your house is $400, $500, it will be increase. The driver behind the tax increase are service delivery negotiations with Douglas County Board of Commissioners. We all share in fire services and EMS services, and due to inflationary cost and demand for that type of public safety, the cost increased from $1.6 million to $3.5 million, and then going up to $4.5 million the next fiscal year. Another driver of the tax increase is the Jesse Davis Park operations. If you, there was a referendum that was passed, and it passed by a good deal. 1509 voted yes, 743 voted no. Jesse Davis Park operation and renovation is due to open up in the fall of 2024. With that, you will have a 2-story gym with an indoor walking track, a new community center, a new senior center, 0 entry pool with a splash play area, multi-use trails, new pavilion area, upgraded playground, and synthetic turf for your football field. Our bond millage rate will go up slightly to 1.35, and our bond millage rate generates revenue to pay the debt service payment on our Jesse Davis Park bonds that was just approved through the special referendum, and also for our public administration building down on Fairburn Road. The bond for the public administration building, the police building, pays off in 2029. So in a couple of years, that bond millage rate will go down. And as I mentioned before, this is our first of 3 public hearings. We have the second public hearing this afternoon at our 6 o'clock meeting, our final public hearing August 29th at 5 p.m. And then after our third public hearing on August 29th at 5:30, we will have a special call meeting where the elected officials will vote to approve the millage rate. And at this time, we would like to open up the floor for public comment.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Callan. This is a public hearing, so I just a couple ground rules. Each person speaking will have 5 minutes. And, I think that's the main ground rule. Usually for our public hearings, you can't, no personal attacks or anything like that. But, so at this time, if you would like to come forward, come on down. Yes, sir. Yeah, if you haven't filled out a card yet, you can fill it out after you speak. The ladies over there will give you one, so if anybody's in the audience. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, your name and address
Yes,
for the record.
Ralph Johnson, 6081 Kingston Drive. And one of the things I saw was that one of the reasons was the renegotiating of the loss tax. So, but isn't that something that you know is going to expire? That's something that shouldn't be like necessarily in the budget, that you're always going to get that? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. That is our local option sales tax, and that is negotiated every 10 years with our fire services, animal control, and our shared services. So we have two major negotiations that are every 10 years. Our local option sales tax percentage, each time you go to Academy or somewhere, 1% of that goes to the state, and it comes back to the cities and the counties at a split, like a ratio. So we negotiated, and the city is receiving now a much smaller percent. We do know that that's coming every 10 years, but we don't know what final numbers we will land on. So we spent about probably 12 to 18 months negotiating that with Douglas County. And so we are receiving a smaller portion and smaller revenue.
And just to add to what Ms. Callan mentioned to you all, not every city in Georgia, cities and counties, have local option sales tax negotiations. We happen to be one of them. Counties have a provision in state law that allows them to actually forego the tax, so they call for the tax. So negotiating a smaller amount for the city was the better interest for the residents versus allowing the county to forego the tax and implementing a different type of tax, which the city would not have been able to take benefit from. If we weren't receiving loss, even at a lower percentage, Ms. Callan calculated that the residents we would have to increase taxes by approximately 4 mills. So it was better to go with the lower tax versus increasing your property taxes.
I think one additional point to make is regarding the negotiations, is that the city does, by statute, is in a weak position when we negotiate between us and the county. We do not, the county has a fallback. If the lost tax doesn't, I can't remember what it is, but they have a separate tax that they can impose if the lost negotiations aren't successful.
A homestead option sales
Thank you.
tax.
Homestead option. The city does not have that option. We have, in other words, it's like going into a card game and the other side can see your cards, but you can't see theirs. And so we are unfortunately in a weakened negotiating position when it comes to that. So we have, even that being said, I think we got the best deal that we could get from the county, so.
And then a final comment to add, because we will face it again in 10 years, we'll be in the same position. So in 10 years, we will go to the table and try to negotiate in best faith with Douglas County, but we do not know what that percentage will yield.
We're just hoping that the state, which has been lobbied to fix the disparity that we have in negotiating with the county, and every city that negotiates with the counties all over the state are in a weakened position, as already been described. We're hopeful that the state legislature might balance that out a little bit. Right now, the deck is stacked whenever we do go into those negotiations. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct. There has been some legislation introduced that it has not necessarily been as successful. What I will say is that on the November ballot, all Georgia residents will see that the state is looking to pass what is called a homestead, floating homestead option. So which that will allow local governments, municipalities in particular, to levy an additional sales tax. So your sales tax in the county could possibly go up another percentage, but everyone pays the sales tax, even those who don't reside here. If that were to pass, then you would see another referendum, which would be helpful to alleviate property tax burden. So you'll see that there'll be a lot of stuff on the ballot. The legislation that Councilman Watts, your committee chair, is speaking of, I'm hopeful that within the next 5 years, the state will be able to come up with some type of solution that will put cities in a better negotiating posture, so that you as residents don't end up being winners or losers on one end of the stick. Because at the end of the day, just as you're city residents, you're also county residents. So no matter what, you're going to pay that tax. whether it's on the city side or the county side, because you do pay both taxes.
Just one last word, and then I'll go back to that public hearing. At the beginning of the negotiations, the county came to the table and was expecting the city to take half of loss that we've been getting for the last 10 years. And we negotiated to where we are, which is a lot better than half. But anyway, let's go back to the public hearing, and anyone else that would like to come down and speak. Yes, your name and address for the record.
All right, my name is Ashley Blarington. My address is 9510 Parkwood Drive. And honestly, I think this is more of a budget issue. All of us citizens are having the same inflation issues, and we have to look at our budget and track down and cut things out. If you're buying too much paper, you're wasting ink, something's going on y'all's end. Bringing it back to the public, that's not our business. You guys are getting a lot of our money, and it sounds like a personal issue that you guys need to be audited. Something's going on. If you're wasting money, that's where it needs to be figured out. I'm not for increasing again for us citizens that own property here. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Any other, if you would like to come forward, come on down. And if you have not filled out one of the cards, go ahead, you can get one and fill it out after you speak and then turn it in. And as you come to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record.
Sandra Moore, 7036 Rose Lake Circle. I am totally opposed of the increase in the taxes. Again, like this young lady just spoke of, we are in a situation where we see an increase in influx in cost of living and everything, and to come and want to add basically 20% increase for our property is totally unacceptable. Just the other day on the news, we hear DeKalb County is actually giving their property tax owner a tax break, okay? And here in Douglasville, please tell me, for that amount of increase, what are you giving us? What are we getting here in Douglasville? We have no decent restaurants, no decent Whole Foods stores. We haven't had our lights sync for traffic, even though this is a DOT, but the overhead right at Highway 5 in Chapel Hill hasn't worked for years. For a year, I use that to commute back and forth to work. So I need to know the time span it's going to take me to get from here to there. And to say for fire and animal shelter, we are increasing with apartments, meaning more people moving into the county. Schools needs to be enlarged. There's going to be an overflow with the schools. Then you're going to want to come for that, okay? Secondly, all we see is gas station and car wash. Well, let's look at the crime that those things bring. And you have nothing to offer us for 20% increase? Unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Chris Sheehan, 7033 Rose Lake Circle, Douglasville. The subdivision we live in is a gated community. We also pay on Rose Avenue county and city taxes. You do not take care of our particular subdivision roads, the roads in the county, what we have paid in taxes. I lived in the county prior to the city. I don't like the idea that I pay both. I don't really know why I pay county and city taxes for. I tried to find that at the tax office in reference to that. We're retired, which is school tax, we get the discount. But anything right now as a senior, everybody knows, or everybody, senior or not, are having financial situations and problems. And you're just asking for more of a burden for the county. What money the county gets prior to us fighting for the rock quarry not being put in. These streets are not maintained. We have they have the Highway 5, you get off of 20, it's a mess. That's your only main road besides Fairburn Road, Chapel Hill Road, but our county, our bridges, our streets are a crap mess. You come down the road, you hit a road, you get your tire aligned, it's messed up. They don't maintain the sides of the road. They don't maintain a lot of things that the county should be doing. When I was driving down the road the other day, I got thinking, what a mess by this golf course. They don't take care of things there. They don't take care of things at edging. That all we have this new companies that are coming in, industrial companies, trucking companies. You haven't seen nothing yet. As I have 4 trucks. I used to have 16, but we downsized. And they're doing, of course, they're going to cause the damage, but how they're building our roads and what they're doing to build the roads is not proper. There's material they can use which is a little bit more expensive, but it wouldn't cause these roads to have holes in them, and it's the damages that's done on the roads. It's not the asphalt that they put on there. There's a special kind of asphalt, as you know. We have Bright Star, where we are paying these taxes. We can't even run around town because it's bumper to bumper, as she said about the signals. Come out of Rose Avenue, take a right, come to Highway 5 and Rose Avenue. You're sitting there for about 15 minutes on that light. Then you go down where the road is, where they're going to start building industrial stuff, which they've already done. That's going to be all industrial. That's going to be big. And then you've got, like she said, the apartments that are coming in. There's people here living on the streets, and there's people in their homes that are going to barely make it through this next year. They got zero in their account some days, and they're wondering if they're going to make it. Now, you've got people that are paying the taxes, people that are not paying taxes. I understand that. But this county, I've been here since 1980 from California. I've never seen a place this. It may have grown some, but as she said, you got nothing. You got Walmart. You got people don't want to leave their houses to even go down that road. We've got Highway 5 because it's so packed and jammed. We have Bright Star Road that could be opened up to make a 4-way. I mean, we do it on 97 going out toward Hiram. They've ripped that road up, fixed that road. I know they did Fairburn Road, but what about Highway 5 and all this other stuff, industrial stuff, apartments, more cars, more kids, more. There's nothing for the kids. I know they worked on the school. I know they worked on the park. But, what about us individuals that you don't maintain things? We don't have a street car that goes and cleans the streets. I remember they used to do that. They don't do that more. I see a guy on the side of the road on Rose Avenue standing there, and what is he doing? He's on the lawnmower while the other guy's mowing the city stuff. I almost stopped and told him, hey, you're supposed to be working, not sitting there just with your phone playing around. I mean, there's things that our county has not done for the people. They've done good try to do for the children, but now it's time for the seniors and the people that are trying to make it through to pay their houses off to have more money for the county. Things, they just don't use the money right. The money should be, I know it's allocated to certain things, but what are you doing that you cut back to make what you need instead of charging us the taxes as the people? I look at this girl here. I let her mother look at everybody around here, and if anybody tells me y'all got it easy, there ain't a one in here that does, unless you're a millionaire or billionaire. Our county has never really stood for the people. The boards have been, I say to myself, it's been very self-centered. They take care of themselves down through the years and generations, Ella. Now, we fought the county. We won for the rock quarry not being put in. We didn't need that. Well, we've got all this traffic, which I had said way back then was going to happen. They're tearing the roads up. They're coming down Rose Avenue, semi-trucks come down Rose Avenue. They don't even have this road fixed properly for these semi-trucks that are coming in. So, you know, you guys talk about accidents on 20, getting off, it's a nightmare on 5. You know, the one lane turns left. I mean, we need to fix what we need to fix here instead of with what we've got.
Just-
And,
I just want to remind you, you only have 5 minutes, so.
Oh, well, forgive me.
That's
Okay,
okay,
I'm up.
but thank you.
Well, thank you for your
comments.
time.
Yes, ma'am. And we won't be clapping today, folks. I know we're tempted to, but we won't be doing that. But thank you. We embrace anybody that wants to come down right now and speak their mind. Fill out the card. You could do it before you speak or after you speak. Remember, name and address.
My name is Keena Phillips, 1045 Augusta Woods Drive. I have a question for everyone, all of the powers that be. When you guys went into these meetings, what other avenues or suggestions did you guys bring to the table before you asked the people to open their pockets? Like, what other ideas did you bring to say, okay, this is not good for the people? I understand you, sir, said that we have the weaker hand. So what did you bring to the table in these meetings to say, hey, let's not increase the people's tax? What else can we do? What can we pour from? Like, what did you guys put on the table for that? I just want to know.
This is, public hearings are not question and answer times, but how do we address,
I'll answer.
how do we address it? No, excuse me. Wait, how do we address anybody that has
I can
a
answer that
specific
one.
question?
Your first request from Douglas County, from increasing from 1.6 to 4.5 was to leave everything the same. If we didn't have those increases in fire services and animal control, we wouldn't be increasing taxes at all. The other is, in order to maintain services and be able to do everything that we're currently doing, and still cutting back on certain compensation for employees, cutting back on certain things that are non-essential, those are the things we kept and remain the same. But there was no way to cut $4.5 million out of the budget without raising taxes or cutting services. So those were really your only two options. But the request to Douglas County was to leave everything the same. Their response to us was that over the course of the past 10 years, service costs have increased, and there was no way for them not to increase those services. So we don't provide fire. We looked at providing fire services on our own. The cost to provide fire services for the city, for just city residents, was going to cost us an additional $18 million. There's no way we could have passed that cost on to the residents. So the easiest route from start to finish was not to increase costs at all. That would have kept things the same, but that's not what we were offered. We did get a lower amount from Douglas County. I think the first original amount was to increase services to $8 million. We're able to negotiate that down to $4.5 million and have steady increases over the course of the past 10 years. This increase would allow us to absorb the 10-year increases over time. But fire services are going to go from $4.5 million in 2025. Ms. Callen, what's the last final amount that's going to increase to?
It escalates 3%
Every year. So every year, your fire services for city residents will increase 3%. That includes fire services and animal control. So this increase helps to cover that cost for the next 10 years.
Is that locked in?
That is locked in. That is locked in for 10 years. We start at 4.5, inflationary increase 3% each year for fire services and animal control. There is no option that is financially feasible for us to be able to provide those services on our own. We looked at that for 2 years. We brought into a consultant, but by the time we build new facilities, hire our own staff, we're looking at just for a departmental budget of $18 million. I don't think that would be in the best interest of the residents of the city. So this was probably the most cost-effective option for you all. But this is what's primarily increasing. This is what's increasing your taxes. We do have Jesse Davis Park. Of course, that was a park that was voted on by the residents to to build that park, and that's gonna include, senior services, things for the kids, but that $4.5 million, is covering that cost. That $1.25 million is equivalent to how much in our budget, Ms. Cowan?
The 1.25 mil is over about 1.5 million.
So $1.5 million. So our budget is absorbing the remainder, our current budget is absorbing the difference between the 4.5 million and then what we're getting from the mill increase. So we're not increasing your taxes, the total equivalent of the increase in costs. Everything else is being absorbed, if that makes sense.
Let's also remember,
Yeah.
you know, the city and the county, we can't speak for the county per se, but, you know, government is affected by inflation just as much as people are. So we pay more for our services, labor costs go up and so forth. So you know, we have to adjust and account for that if we want to provide the same level of service that we had without cutting service, it's going to cost us more to provide that service within that environment. I also want to address young woman's issue about, you know, what you get in return. And I understand that, you know, we see this all the time. Everybody wants to have a Whole Foods here or a Trader Joe's or something, you know, really, or I'd really love to have Costco personally. I have to go quite a distance to get to one. But the cold, hard facts of attracting those businesses is that you need the rooftops to attract them. Douglasville, at its current size, will not get a Trader Joe's. We're just not big enough. We don't have the density. We don't have the income level. Now, I'm not saying, you know, I'm not intending to hold that over folks' heads, like, well, you better sign off on all new development or you won't get this. I'm just saying that's the truth of the economics. You can't have a Trader Joe's unless you have enough people to support that business. And the city doesn't have the capability of simply going out and, you know, demanding Trader Joe's come into Douglasville. We can't do that. It's a private business. We can only try to provide the atmosphere or create the background that allows these businesses to come in, and we would want to encourage them, but we can't make them come here. The other issue to think about, and I know that this is something that it's a current debate that we're having on city council just as much as you're having it around the dinner table, is the level of development in the city of Douglasville. Now, obviously, we can't control what's going on in the county. You have to go to your county commissioner meeting to address that. But within the city, I mean, you know, we live in a society of property rights, private property. And if a piece of property is currently zoned to allow a particular type of development, we're limited to how much we can defend against that. We can't simply tell somebody, well, you can't do that just because we don't want you to do that. If the zoning currently allows that type of construction or that type of density, we're limited in what we can do to restrict that. And so I think folks have to understand that, you know, we don't have the power of Solomon to simply go in and tell people you can't do that when it's already allowed. So I know that doesn't sound very satisfying, but, you know, except when it comes to annexation, we do have control of that.
And I think one of the things, to make the numbers make a little bit more sense, because, you know, you all see the property tax increase and you don't see in a sense, the decrease in the budget. The loss negotiations, the local option sales tax that was spoke of before. So not only are you all getting hit twice, because we did do a property tax increase last year, but that was because the percentage that we were receiving from those sales taxes was 28%. But when we did the negotiations, it dropped down to 25%. So in order to keep things the same, we had to increase taxes to make up for the difference in the loss. So this is the same thing that we're doing this year. In order to receive the services for the city residents, to cover the increase in cost to receive services from the county, we're having to basically increase taxes, not to the equivalent of that $4.5 million, but whatever the budget could absorb, which we did, and then anything remaining, we had to raise taxes to cover it. So that's where that is. There's no, you know, there was a question of fluff in the budget. No, we're just paying for the service. We're paying to maintain what we currently have in order to continue to move forward with the services that you all are interested in having. And not only just interested in having, I think it was made mention, the quality of service. And with quality comes cost. Yes, ma'am, sorry.
Go ahead, and,
I want to piggyback off, you made a comment, and I'm glad you made it, because what you said was basically no Whole Food, no Trader, because of the income level of Douglasville residents. So our income level is not good enough for that, but it's good enough for tax increase. Piggyback on what you said was, other ways, and that was no answer. So, in what you just said, we have a quick trip on Highway 5, but if you go on Fairburn Road, you got 2 quick trips and a racetrack. And we built an amphitheater. I work for city government, right? And the city I work for, when they give these license and business permits, these companies put back into the community. Okay, so if we're gonna continue to allow convenience store gas stations, and like I said, Douglas County got the most car wash I ever seen in any county. So then, and I'm like, how many people going to get their car washed like that? Then they need to be putting back into the budget to help us. They became part of our community. So then they need to be paying to help with this budget that we keep seeing a decrease, but we need to pay for services. And I get that, I get all of that. I most definitely want fire to have the utmost equipment they deserve, just as well as police. But I also know, here again, like I mentioned earlier, we keep building apartments, and I don't see us building on the schools. Classrooms gonna get overflowed. They already are, but they're gonna get even worse. So, and we already dealing with a nationwide where people are not being able to afford to live. And I just want that to be really considered. How are other ways besides the residents? It's always the residents that we fought on, but the businesses, they get tax breaks. They get tax breaks. Y'all give them that to come into your county. They need to pay back, one way or the other.
whoever's next, come on up. Name and address for the record.
Good morning. I'm Shakina Mincy, 8144 Willow Bank Way. One thing we've never spoke about here, I just turned 37 Monday. My husband just turned 40. And we are the second largest generation, which is millennials. We're not small kids like everybody may think we are. Our kids are the generation after us. And we built our house here in 2015. We used to visit here first, and then we built. I just got back from a 2-week vacation in Florida. And what I saw down there, going from Clearwater Beach to Melbourne Beach, back and forth between Orlando, the streets were paved in the city, in the county, on the highways, and coming back home, having to drive, just getting over here, which is why I'm out of breath, sorry. The streets are not paved. And I live downtown Douglasville. Like most of you here, I pay city and I pay county taxes. And we have more, like we all say, gas stations, beauty supply stores. But as a family of 5, we have 3 small children. I sit on the PTA. I go to the monthly meetings, yearly meetings with the Board of Education, the superintendent every year. I'm the representative for my kids' school and the community here. I do things here in the community. And knowing how the budget works, my husband works for Alpharetta for Fulton County, up north. And he makes sure the public water there is safe to drink. And being here in Douglas County, I see city workers not doing their job. Driving around, they're not doing their job. I see city workers parked in my subdivision right here downtown, sleeping. So I do want to know, how do I report that, for one? But 2, because I live right across from the transportation right next door. We do have to work on the streets that's here, but putting the money in the schools, our school system is in the red, and it should not be, especially not with what we pay in taxes, city and county taxes. And I say that because this is not Atlanta. This is not DeKalb County. This is Douglasville. This is Douglas County. We moved to Douglas County because we saw the difference in Atlanta. Living in Atlanta, we didn't want our kids to go to school in Atlanta or to live in the city in general. And as a homeowner, we are going to be priced out of our homes. I keep up with the market. That's part of my business. So if I can't keep up with my home, my husband works for county government himself, and I know how the budget is run in Alpharetta, and those taxes are extremely more expensive than what we have here in Douglas County, I can say. But we still pay more taxes than most counties, knowing where I'm from, closer to the coast, Savannah area. Why are we paying as many taxes when this is not the city? This isn't Atlanta. I have to leave Douglas County in order for me and my family, my 3 young children from ages 11 down, in order for us to even have a family night, because there's nothing here for us to do. We have Thunder Zone, a Chuck E. Cheese, and that's it. But how many times can you take your kids to something like that before they're bored, they're tired? I know y'all have things here at the amphitheater, but it's catered more to the older crowd or more to the middle crowd. What is there for us to do that are in our 30s and 40s who have small kids, other than maybe a movie night, which is something most of us with work and school, we don't have time to do with our kids. So by the time we get here through traffic, the road with the roads, the stoplights, we all complain about the stoplights. What are you giving us back? We never have the conversation of a decrease here, because at this point, my entire back of my subdivision, and we came down here, me, a few of my neighbors that are here, a small community of us, to try to fight that application, to get stipulations put on that application so that the HOA that they control, the builders, aren't taking over and the homeowners can do. We don't have no control. We have a pool that we can't even use. There was a shooting at our pool and we knew nothing about it. Nothing about it. The community we moved into that was once safe, where we could leave our doors unlocked, I can't leave my car unlocked anymore. People are parked on the street. There's so many times somebody has almost landed into my home. My kids can't play out front. But as a millennial, as a 37-year-old woman, what do we do with our kids in Douglasville if there's no place to go? They can't go outside because crime has increased. The kids don't know the neighbors because of what's happening with the school system. And it's everywhere. It's not just in Douglasville. I understand that. It's everywhere. But what are we getting back as homeowners? Because we're footing the bill. I compare statistics for my home to a home that's next door to me, that is smaller in size, that is owned by a public traded company who came in and built nothing but rental properties. The taxes are ridiculously, it's $1,500 difference in my taxes and the rental property next door. I understand a tax break, but what do we get except for a tax increase, and nothing is given back into us? Thank you.
I want to unpack a couple of those things quickly. If there are issues regarding paving or problems with the streets, we do, and I'll have our city manager will provide you with the number and then the connections, because we will respond. If you see a pothole or something like that, we'll respond to that and take care of that. Or if your garbage service is a mix, something like that. The other thing, she can also guide you to activities for your children through Hunter Park and the CAC. We do have a lot of activities available to young children and to teenagers in those facilities. That's just off the top of my head. There's others out there as well. So we'll connect you with some of what you're asking for. Okay.
Thank you. And then Mayor Pro Tem, there are a couple people mentioned certain things about city employees. My cards are at the edge of this desk. If there's an issue with any city employee that anybody sees, crime, please take my card. Please call me, email me. I promise you someone will call you within the hour to rectify whatever that situation is. And we have a whole youth department division within our park system. So if anybody's looking for activities for their kids, please call me on that. And Ms. Callen presented before everything that Jesse Davis Park is going to avail itself to within the next couple of months.
And you have 7 council members and a mayor that you can call as well. We answer our phones, so.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
LaWanda Mitchell, 6081 Kingston Drive. I kind of want to piggyback on the Whole Food thing. I know that seemed like it was, what comes the cart before the horse? You want to have a small city, Douglasville, with big ideals. When you look at what's coming into Douglasville, not just gas stations, not just car washes, if I see another dollar store, if I see another Waffle House, those type of things do not attract an income level of people who will be able to, who want to purchase homes in Douglasville. You have Target, who has a Tesla or a charging station. Before they put that in, they looked at what the economics were within this city to say, okay, well, you have Chapel Hill, and those houses start probably at 300,000. So if you are attracting those type of people in, you have to have the type of places when you do your city planning to say, we don't want another dollar store. We don't want to see another Dollar General or another Waffle House or another gas station or another. Bring in something that is sustainable. You have a mall over there that is dying. It is on life support. You want to bring in apartment buildings. You can't control what that looks like for the city. When you have homeowners, you have people who obviously take pride in what they do, who will bring in more taxes. When you have apartment buildings, you have just that. You have apartment buildings, people who are not invested in the community. So when you think about raising taxes, or you do your 10-year projection, use that same matrix when you consider your city planning to bring in income levels that will sustain the budget. And you do that by giving the city a look, not of dollar stores, not of car washes, not of these things that I keep seeing. If I see another Dollar General, I promise you I'm gonna scream. And I know they pay money, but start bringing in something that's sustainable. We're probably about ready to lose Dillard's. You know, that's the only thing that we have that's grounding. People who live in your middle class, where do they have to go? I have to drive 40 minutes, 45 minutes to a Whole Foods stores to get anything good to eat. And when you solicit those, look at Villa Rica, look at these other incomes that will pull in these people so that we can get those type of places in our community.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Ralph Benton. I'm at 8147 Willowbank Way. I didn't come prepared to speak today. I really just want to come out, but the purpose of this hearing, it says it's to consider the proposal but at this point, we're there. No matter what we say here tonight, that's going forward. Is that, I'm assuming that's where we are right now. There is some disparity. The property taxes here are just going. And it's going to be tough for a lot of our people to survive, to maintain that. We've had a lot of building, we talk about rooftops. We've had a lot of rooftops added to Douglasville, but they're not individual citizen owned. They're owned by corporations. They're not selling them, they're renting them. So we lose our base of community because people are just coming and going from everywhere, and they're not even registered to vote here. And the size of our community doubled. We went from 100 and something to 200 and something homes. So now the people that were neighbors of mine, that were residents here, got choked out and they started leaving. So now 85% of the homes are owned by a corporation. So there's only a few of us left that are still part of the community. So the people who live there, they don't have that vested. And I'm not saying they're bad people. They just don't have that same amount of effort and energy invested in the area in which they're staying right now, because it's temporary for them. So looking at those taxes, again, I'm not sure who negotiates or how it got negotiated, the tax breaks, but they're not, the house is smaller than mine, the tax is less than mine, but it's owned by a corporation. I'm not sure how that all went down, but it did. So now I've got this extra burden coming to me in the form of raised taxes. That chart on the fire services, very important, the fire service, that's a large increase over time. What caused that increase? Was there more emergency calls? Were those calls in the city? Were they county? Were they people who live here, or just, maybe there was someone who was homeless? Did that increase? What was the basis to have that major increase in cost for emergency services? Something happened. And maybe you all investigated. I'm not questioning that. It's just from our perspective, we don't always get to see those inner workings that take place. I happen to be a planning commissioner, so I get to see some things. I don't get to see everything, but there are some things that come across that I get to see, and I understand, how they come about. I understand that, we can't dictate this property owner to say, it's zoned for this, and you're gonna use it as it is zoned, but we don't want that. You can't do that. You have to do something else. I understand the restrictions around that. But we still can do some things to help shape, mold, or help control how our community is growing. And again, I don't want to repeat the number of gas stations and car washes and all that stuff. Yeah, they're everywhere. They're all over the place. But there are some things that we can do here. And also, not to attack any of you guys, I'm not doing that. We have to get involved as well as citizens, but we have to get kind of some closer things. Like when we have these zoning changes and things are happening on properties, the signs that are posted that are required are this big, and then you're driving. I don't know what the expectation is to get out of that, but in order to see it, you got to stop, park, get out, and walk up to it. That's just not efficient. It's not sufficient. So as we can't stop this train because it's already rolling, but I still like to voice my opinion that I really disagree with this increase. I think it's significant. I appreciate your efforts in doing what you could to help curtail it from being as larger, but I would definitely like to work better with this not happening again. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your service on the Planning Commission also. Who would like to come up next? Remember, you have to fill out a card either before you speak or after you speak. Name and address for the record.
Hi, my name's Christina Keener. I'm at 8590 Chestnut Lane. So I might not be in the city, but I can tell you I've been here 54 years. And I have seen Douglas County and Douglasville go downhill, but our taxes keep increasing. I was the first house built in Chestnut Log. I grew up there. Oh my gosh, I have to literally set up payment arrangements for my taxes. And by the time they get paid off, they're here again. And I believe I speak for everyone. We are decreasing in our lives and suffering to have to increase and not having anything to show in Douglas County. The crime rate has went up. The loitering has went up. I can tell you, I feel like sometimes I'm in Atlanta because I'm stopped at a red light and people are trying to sell water on the street to stay alive. It's sad. I work 3 jobs, and all 3 jobs are in Douglasville. I'm sorry, you're gonna tax me, and I have no children in school, and I'm paying almost $1,300 a year for taxes? What about the people that's live in these apartments that has 5 and 6 kids? You ain't taxing them. You ain't making them pay any other kind of taxes, this mileage taxes or anything else. Send them a bill. I have no problem with helping out with the school taxes. I don't. My kids are grown, they're not in school no more. I don't mind school taxes. But enough's enough going up on stuff for us. Somehow, some way, us as homeowners and property owners has got to take a stand in Douglasville and Douglas County and say enough's enough. You want to build an apartment complex? That's good, but you're going to tax everybody that lives in that apartment complex. You're going to send them a bill like we get a bill every year. You might be taxing that apartment complex, but you ain't taxing that person that's living in that home.
Now, I shouldn't be responding directly, but let me just clarify something. People who live in apartments do pay property tax. They just pay it through their rent. A property owner, a person who owns an apartment building is not going to absorb that tax. They're passing it on. It goes into their rent. They just don't see the bill directly.
But I
they're
almost
still
guarantee
paying.
you, they're not getting taxed like we get taxed.
They get the same rate that everyone else gets. That's all.
So people that lives in efficiencies, hotels, because you can't tell me they don't, and I feel for them. But I think as a property owner, we worked hard to have our property. We worked hard to be where we are, and we're still standing in Douglas County.
So,
I will tell you today that I'm leaving Douglas County after 54 years because of all of this garbage. The crime rate is unreal. Where we can leave our doors open, I had someone 3 years ago try to break in and kill me. And he gets out of jail and he gets to come back to that house 3 doors down from me. Tell me Douglas County and Douglasville ain't doing something right. So you want my property tax money and you want me to increase? Y'all got to increase and show us some better security and show us some more roads that's, you know, I'm not having to go get my car aligned every time you turn around because there's another pothole. Let's fill it up with just a little bit of asphalt, it'll be okay. So, I mean, y'all want our increase? We need an increase in return on what you're doing in Douglas County. But I think everybody should get a bill every year for taxes. I don't care where you live. If you got children, take care of them. We don't mind taking care of them, but you gotta do your part too. If we're gonna get taxed for this road, if you live in an efficiency and you got a car, you should be having to step forward to do something also. You're driving on the roads. So that's how I feel.
Thank you. Did we have a comment?
I was just going to clarify just a little bit because the hotel property owners do pay that property tax that is then passed on through the rates at the hotel. But they also have to pay an additional hotel motel tax for each night that someone is staying there. But just for clarification, you don't pay city taxes because you live in the county, so you're only paying the county taxes. And if you are in fact having some issues with the county sheriff's department, I'm sure that we can help guide you to get you to the right person that can offer you some help. But guys, please keep in mind, there are 3 different branches of local government on your tax bill. That's your city, your county, and your school, and those are all paid differently. And I do feel your pain because just like each of you, we are all city residents as well. And so everything that I've been saving for my baby boy that's going to college, we are feeling it this year because there is inflation. So I assure you, we have looked at it as your city council leaders to make sure that we make every decision as best we can for each and every one of you guys. But if you have more questions, please, I mean, I'm not saying stop coming down because we want to make sure that you guys all understand the situation that we were faced with.
And to add to what Ms. Miller is saying, I didn't mean to interject, Mayor Pro Tem, is that we do a Citizens Academy twice a year. I would encourage all of you, take my card, come in, we're open. You actually can see everything that's related to the budget, everything that we do. We're clearly transparent and very similar to what she mentioned about the hotel motel tax. Renters and apartments pay taxes as well as pass through your rent. So part of one of the largest taxpayers within the city is apartment complexes. So, and that gets passed on to those people, to individuals who are renting. So there's not really a mechanism where individuals are not paying taxes.
I also want to address what the young woman said about crime, and I don't want to sound cold about this. I mean, when you're a victim of a crime, statistics don't matter. It means nothing, and I get that, you know, and just about everybody has at some point been a victim, I think. But I do want to clarify, there is a perception that crime has increased in the city and the county, and that is a perception only. If you look at the statistics, crime has actually leveled off or decreased over the last several years overall. I know, like I said, that means nothing if you're the victim. But we do want to be clear about that. The crime rate in the city, and actually nationwide, has been declining in the last few years. And we have this. We're happy to share the statistics with you. We have those. The FBI keeps a catalog of those on a citywide basis, and so actually ask the city manager, and she'll be happy to provide you with a statistical chart that shows you what the crime rate is and where it compares to previous years. So, and the only thing I'll just say, just one last thing, is and we all see that, and it feels that way because, and I hate to put the blame somewhere, but it is social media. You know, 20 years ago, if you were a victim of a crime, you would tell everybody who you know, you would tell them, and, you know, and all your family and your friends would know about it. If you're the victim of a crime today, everybody knows it because it goes on social media. And so we're constantly barraged by information coming from some people we barely know, our Facebook friends, as we call them, who are victims. So that adds to the perception. So that's something to keep in mind.
And on the crime front, to add to what the Mayor Pro Tem has mentioned, our chief is extremely open. We have probably almost 100 events a year, including that the chief will come to your neighborhood and come to your house. So if anybody's looking and has an issue with crime, particularly within their neighborhood, within the city, we can't do anything in the county, please, again, take my card. Chief Gary Sparks will call you personally. He and his team and his officers, we do a couple times a year, we call neighborhood walks. They walk in the neighborhood. So please, again, take my card. And we also do law enforcement academies as well. So there's really, to have access to the city government, we're open. There's nothing that we're doing that we don't want your feedback and input. That's how we work better, and that's how we improve our services. But again, please take my card, and I'll make certain that the chief gets in touch with you.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Kelly Sherrard. I am at 3955 Jackie Drive. I am a homeowner and a small business owner here in Douglasville. And my mortgage already has increased $300 with the last increase. So for the property tax to go up again, I feel like I'm going to be choked out, you know, out of home and business. You know, my customers come in, their paychecks aren't going up, and that is directly affecting me both ways. So I'm definitely opposed of this property tax. I can't remember what else I'm gonna say.
Take your time.
Okay, I'm.
If it comes to you, if it comes to you, come back up.
Okay.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, since I know all the board members aren't here, but the ones that are here, I noticed we do get a homestead exemption for the city here. But with those of us that are homeowners, we pay a city and county tax. Can't the board implement an additional homestead exemption or some type of assistance for, or discount, you want to call it discount in this age, for city residents that are homeowners here to combat the difference since we're paying city and county taxes? I wanted to kind of bring that to your attention to see if there's something that you guys can bring to the table and, you know, speak about, vote on with your other board members, so that it kind of gives us a break so that we're not suffocated with both county and property taxes. And two, I wanted to encourage everybody here. We talk about taxes, but if you look at your tax bill, the bulk of your taxes is education. And I say this because I meet with the superintendent yearly. I'm on the board, I do all of this. When you look at your tax bill, the city hasn't increased taxes as much as the county has, but it mainly comes from the Board of Education. I really encourage everybody, please look up the Board of Education, know who the members are, go to those meetings. I know we're all here because we get the city tax increase, but if we don't show up to the board meetings for the school tax increase, the taxes you're not gonna really see a difference. I may see 100, 200 difference in my mortgage each year, and that's due to insurance and certain things. Some of you may not do all of that stuff, but I do. But if you look at your tax bill when you receive it, you would know the difference increase in the bonds, whether it's school, whether it's education, whether it's the city or the county. Please, please come out to these board meetings so that we, as a community, if we're going to get our tax bill down, we have to go to the board as well and not just the city. Thank you. That's all I want to say.
One thing I'd like to point out about the board, somebody made mention about the school system not keeping up with the development that's going on in the city and the county. Every single development that comes before us, like if you come to this evening's meeting, there's a number of things on the development agenda. Anything that comes to us gets sent. One of the places it goes is the Board of Education or those folks over there, and they can weigh in on what we're proposing, whether it's an apartment complex or a housing development. They can weigh in. Community development, planning and zoning, y'all have seen the same thing. So a lot of times you'll see that they have an opportunity to weigh in if they have a problem with how many kids are in that school, and that housing development's going to add so many kids. And I haven't seen one in the 8 years that I've been on where they've said, hey, let's talk about this. And I don't know exactly how that works, but they contact our city, and yes, go ahead, city manager.
The way that it works is that, and I talk to the superintendent frequently, the superintendent typically wants to know in advance so they have their own strategic plan on building schools. So they're typically not going to respond to say no. They're going to respond based on capacity. But to Councilman Watt's point, I mean, we haven't received an objection on anything that we've brought into the city, because the school system also understands the same thing that the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned. As far as economic stats on some of the interests for what many of you've mentioned, some of the types of businesses, I think Douglas County is there when it comes to income levels. I think the problem that we face is your companies that are your Whole Foods. I think there's a thought process that the city recruits for those things. We don't recruit for that. Those individual companies, they have all types of technology and marketing efforts that they see where their customers come from. So the individual that mentioned that they went to Whole Foods, wherever they went to, when you tap into your zip code, Whole Foods knows that you shop there. So they're understanding where their customers are being pulled from. We can't reiterate, in the pool of Metro Atlanta, we're a small county, so we don't have the population to support some of the businesses that you all want. So when it comes to school systems jotting things down, school systems responding, the school system understands that balance. We want to bring in some of the businesses that the individuals want, but at the same time, we want to be able to support those services. So it is definitely a well point to say that, as you all are attending this meeting, I encourage you to attend school system meetings on their taxes, the county on their taxes, to really understand how that works. And I can encourage you all, including county residents, please participate in our Citizens Academy. I promise you, you will learn a significant amount about where every single dollar that you entrust us with, where it goes. And I promise you, you won't see any fluff. Our sanitation department is a really good example of that. I mean, when you look at that, we service the 35,000 residents with a department of less than 50 people picking up trash. And out of those 50 people, 15 of them work on the back of the garbage truck. So we are really mindful of the fact that you entrust us with this money, and we don't take that lightly. The question was asked about a homestead exemption. Ms. Callen can explain how that works. She can also tell you about what the state is proposing that may assist with that as well. Because when you exempt, you have to provide an offset for that. So you may get a break, but we may have to reduce some things. And we're, if there's services that we don't, or you all don't want, that's something that I would encourage you to talk to your elected officials about. We can pull those back. By not providing a service, that takes that money and puts it in another place to help offset some of the things that you want.
Yes, we can certainly look into how we can add a homestead exemption, but again, like the city manager said, that would be less revenue for us. with a homestead exemption, so it's, but we can definitely look into that. What Marshall, also the city manager, was alluding to is that during this past year at the state legislative session, they are also hearing the same types of issues that you all are bringing to us. And so for property tax relief that will be on this November's ballot is House Resolution 1022. Now, once that passes, then next November, there will be on the ballot House Bill 581. And that is what we talked about at the very beginning of this, which will allow for an additional 1% sales tax. And that will be the revenue that we receive from that additional sales tax. And that, again, comes from everybody who comes in to the city. They might not live here, coming through, going to Atlanta. We collect that from all different sources. We are able to roll our millage rate back of that millage equivalent of the revenue that we receive from that additional sales tax. It's for only residential property, but we do see that will definitely be some. We anticipate if everything passes, that will be property tax relief for everyone, because it's not just us here, it's the whole state of Georgia are feeling that, so.
One thing I'll mention on sales taxes, is Douglasville, Douglas County is looking to have on this November's ballot a transportation special purpose local option sales tax, is to take the burden off of the general fund, your property taxes, to be able to cover the cost of transportation. All of our transportation dollars have come from the SPLOST that you all voted in as citizens. But I'll tell you, transportation is one of the largest costs. When we paved Douglas Boulevard, that cost us just from Chapel Hill Road to Highway 5, it was $1.2 million. That's just Douglas Boulevard. So paving roads is not a cheap endeavor. And the best way that we can get the biggest bang for our buck is when we bulk projects in together. It's not cost effective to just go and patch one section of a road, because by the time you pay the cost to mobilize that, you're actually being ineffective. So when you see us in certain areas and we're not there, we're pulling together what we can to pave those roads. Our transportation project fund for this current 2022 SPLOS is right at about, Heather, do you know that number off the top of your head? You're our SPLOS person. Do you got it?
I apologize, I missed the first part of that question.
Our transportation SPLOS fund for the next 6 years is about.
Oh, the T-SPLOS fund, I know that.
Not
okay.
SPLOS 2022, it was, I want to say around 32 million.
So if it will just say 32 million and we'll get you that number, but if you think about it, I said Douglas Boulevard was 1.2 million, and if our fund for 6 years is only 30 million, that's not a lot of roads being paved in Douglasville, Douglas County, but that's what we're limited to. So, and again, I keep saying the Citizens Academy. The reason I say that is because you all would get this information firsthand, so you'll understand when the city, I can't speak for the other jurisdictions, but when the city is putting forth money toward a project, this is what this is costing. And we do bid those projects out, so when it comes to those projects, we take the lowest bidder. So, and that Douglas Boulevard project was back in 2016. It would probably cost us today about 1.6, 1.8 to do that same road.
We were in a meeting this past week with Douglas County, or on the T-SPLOST, and we all said paving costs have doubled over the past 4 to 5 years. Just we are receiving the inflationary cost too as a city, so costs are going at doubled for transportation cost on paving roads. House Resolution 1022 and House Bill 581.
And to Karen's point, when it comes to the biggest impact to your property tax relief, that's probably going to be at the state level, to have legislative mandates for your local government. So that House bill, I would take a look at it. It's online. You all can look to see what it is. It puts a cap. Many states that you go to, there's a cap on how much they can levy. But understand, a lot of that is going to push to now your sales taxes. So your cost of your groceries may go up, but your cost of your property taxes go down. So there's always a delicate balance that you have to play when you're looking at funds to cover the cost for government services. So even less, 19 million. That is coming from sales taxes for the next 6 years, 19 million, to just cover the cost of roads. So, and in our previous SPLOST that we had for 2016, we exhausted all the funds we had for that. That was a significant amount. I know we did over about $30 million in road pavement. But again, there would never be enough money that we could gather or collect to pave all the roads. Potholes, if you all see potholes, please, 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 again, take my card, whatever you need to do, I'll give you my number. We'll come out to fix potholes, but paving roads is a costly endeavor.
There's also a messaging system that we have online. It's Text My Gov. And so that will go through to our community relations department, and then it will make it through to us as well.
I want to say one last thing, too, and I don't know if anybody else is going to speak, but the city of Douglasville has absolutely amazing city manager and city staff. And, you know, we are required by the state to hold these hearings for millage rate adjustments or the setting of. And so, okay, I'm a government nerd. I've actually been to other city council meetings in other cities and seen how they do this. And what they'll do, you know, they're required to take public comment, and people come up, and the city council and the staff will sit there and say nothing the whole time. Or at most they'll say, "We'll take that under advisement." The great quote. You have a city staff here that will answer your questions, that will engage you, that will explain things to you, and take your opinion into account and help you resolve these problems. That doesn't happen in every city. I wish I could say it did, but it doesn't. Like I said, we have an amazing staff. We're just the folks up here, you know, have to make the decisions on stuff, but these are the people who make things happen. But if you've got an issue, like the city manager said, take our card, take our number down. We'll address it. We work for you. You know, that's the bottom line. I mean, we pay the same taxes that you pay. We live in the same neighborhoods you live in. You know, addressing one of the, you know, when somebody was talking about the issue of apartments that's going on, we're seeing a lot of a lot of national companies come in and buying up houses and renting them. Well, that is a national issue, okay? And we were just talking about this just before the meeting started. How, you know, I don't know if you know, the average new house price in the United States is now over $400,000. Think about that. That's faster than the rate of inflation. That's pricing a lot of middle-class people out of the housing market. They can't afford to buy a house. How many of you could, even if you adjust that backwards for inflation, how many of you could have afforded to buy a house when you were in your 20s that cost $400,000 in today's dollars? You know, so you're seeing the market react to that, and you're seeing a lot of that inflation is being pushed up by these companies that are coming in and buying up. I represent and I live in Arbor Station. I'm seeing it in my own neighborhood. A lot of these companies are coming in and buying houses in my neighborhood. You know. And there's not much we can do about it at the moment. It's, like I said, this is a national issue. If you can find a way of dealing with it at the federal level, great. But cities can't, we don't have the power to do that. And so I wish we did.
One thing I would like to point out, since we're on this subject, the HOA that represents me in the subdivision I lived in, we had to get 80% of the homeowners in the subdivision to approve it, an amendment that would set a limit to rentals in our subdivision. I could say that I haven't seen a single development before the city that is 100% rental. But the last three developments that we have approved, each one of them already had the developer already had an HOA covenants in place for when they finish, and all three of them had a cap of 10% rental within those subdivisions. Well, somebody's shaking their head. I'm just telling you, I was at the meeting that approved the last one. Now, there are subdivisions out there that have a greater number of that. And each subdivision, they have an HOA. So I would contact my HOA and see if that limit is in place and whether or not that's something that y'all could do as an HOA. Yes.
And I was just going to add to what Councilman Watts has mentioned. That was also a state issue. So for those who want to get more involved, the state legislature tried to create legislation related to rental of single-family for-rent communities. I think it was led, I think the city of College Park had a big issue with it because there are communities and cities in Georgia that have upwards of 60% rental in their communities. We're not one of those. So to the point that it's a nationwide issue, what you get into is property rights. So, you know, who is allowed to tell someone what to do with their property? That's what you get into. So I don't have an answer to that, and I'm not an attorney, but that's typically where the conversation gets hung up, is that if I have a home, who tells me I can't rent my property? So, you know, that really becomes the question, and I don't have an answer for that. But again, if that's an issue that is close to you, I would suggest getting involved not just at the local level, but at the state level on this issue, because I do believe that probably when the legislative session starts in the spring, it will be back on the table again because it is such a huge issue for all residents nationwide.
And it's being driven by these big companies that want to develop these large rental communities. So contacting your state legislature, or your representative, when these bills come, and like Ms. Hampton said, it's been on, I guess for lack of a better term, on the agenda, I think, the last 3 sessions. And the GMC, which represents cities, and including us, GMA, they have lobbied against it, and it hasn't gotten to the point where it's been passed, but they're trying hard to get these kind of things. So knowing that, and maybe contacting your representative when that comes back before the legislature. Do we have anyone else that would like to come down during this public hearing? We will also, this evening's will be a public hearing also.
5 o'clock?
At 6, I believe.
6, sorry. Excuse me. 6.
But anyway, anybody else that would like to come down? All right, then I'm going to close the public hearing and listen, y'all coming to the meeting and speaking your piece has more of an effect than you realize. So thank you for being here today. Ms. Hampton, do you have anything else to add before we adjourn or turn it back over to Mayor Pro Tem?
No, sir. We'll be prepared to do it again tonight.
That's all we had under finance.
Thank you, Councilman Watts. Any other final comments from council members or the staff at this time?
I would just like to echo on what Coach just said. I really appreciate you guys all taking time out of your day to come down and speak your hearts and your minds and talking to us. It really does make a big impact. So anytime you guys have questions or concerns about the community, we really are here to serve you guys. Just thank you for being here.
Thank you, Councilman. Yeah, there's the famous old expression, I don't remember who said it, but the decisions are made by those who show up. It's that simple. So thank you for being here. Hearing no other comments, this meeting is adjourned.